Hello again, everyone. It is a great pleasure to introduce the next group of speakers for our session, Blockchain's Role in Making Africa's Financial System Inclusive. Let's give a warm welcome to our moderator, Melissa Slaymaker, Global Partnership Director at Women in Tech, who will introduce her panel. Melissa, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Hello, everybody. We are very grateful and privileged to be here at the conference this year. And I'm Melissa Slaymaker. I wear many hats at Women in Tech. One of the hats that I wear is actually one of our blockchain trainers. So I am very passionate about blockchain technology and also the benefits and the potential it has to really upskill our youth and to also focus on financial inclusion across Africa. So today's panel, we're going to be talking about blockchain's role in making Africa's financial systems more inclusive. So before I give the panel a chance to introduce themselves, I also just want to ask the audience here, does everyone here have a digital wallet? Or put your hand up if you have a digital wallet. Okay, that's pretty good. It's about 50-50. So does everyone here know the difference between blockchain and cryptocurrencies? I mean, I think most people do, right? So blockchain is the technology, it's like a digital ledger, and cryptocurrencies is built upon that. So what I always like to ask this question is so many people that still today don't see the benefit of having access to these financial systems, to blockchain technologies, to cryptocurrencies, to digital wallets. So really, speak to me afterwards if you want to know how to access this world of blockchain, about metaverse, and all of that. So do reach out to me. So thank you so much. Today, we're going to be introducing you to our lovely panel. So I'm going to start with Rikki Barnes. If you want to introduce yourself, go ahead.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Rikki Barnes. I've been in financial services in a few different guises over the last 2 decades. I have the extreme privilege of being able to work in an area that constitutes one of personal interest to me. So for the last 3 years, I've been heading up the blockchain enabler for FirstRand, which may come as a surprise to many of you, but I would like to assure you that the banks are fairly active in the space. A lot of it is under the cards, but expect to see more in the near future.
That's exciting to hear. I think it's about time. The next person I would love to introduce is Przemysław, who's the head of business development at Matushkin. Tell us a bit about yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Przemysław. I spent last 14 years in fintech industry, online trading, banking, payments, crypto payments. Currently, I work for Match Technologies, where I help to develop crypto payment gateway Match2Pay.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And over to you, Andrew. Please introduce yourself.
Sure. Hello, everyone. Nice to have you here. Thank you, Melissa, for a chance to be introduced. Thanks to everyone for joining this beautiful panel. Well, effectively, my name is Andrew. I'm in charge of the business development for the B2 broker and primarily for one of the leading, you may say, crypto payment solution is B2B and Pay, and this is what, on behalf of this solution, actually, I would be talking to. And in general, we've been very close in adopting crypto and enabling blockchain to the traditional finance and bridging these two worlds. So definitely have something to share.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And last but not least, we have Wiehann Olivier. If you want to please introduce yourself. Thanks.
Thanks so much. So my name is Wiehann Olivier. I'm a chartered accountant and a registered auditor. I am a partner, assurance partner at Mazars, South Africa. Also heading up the fintech and digital assets within the firm. And I've also been fortunate enough to act as the specialist dealing with digital assets for Mazars on a global basis, basically servicing a variety of virtual asset service providers from an audit, tax and advisory perspective.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to start with you, Wiehann, actually, so we'll work our way backwards. Your question I have for you is, how do you think that blockchain can balance decentralized ownership? So we're talking about crypto wallets and making things more user-friendly and also enabling innovations to encourage mainstream adoption.
Yeah, I think if we discuss that, what I usually do is I look at it from an African point of view, because I think Africa seems to be one of the countries that can have the most significant impact or be the most significantly impacted by blockchain-based digital asset as well as blockchain technology as a whole, especially because of the fact that the whole population in Africa, or a large portion of the population in Africa is underserved. So we've got this large migrant workforce that's underserved, and the infrastructure isn't necessarily there. So I think, perhaps to your question, I think delving into the various intricacies into it as well, the decentralized aspect of it is very important, because Bitcoin was essentially created, the original cryptocurrency was created to facilitate peer-to-peer payments without the need for the intermediary, and it did this by using various technologies that already existed. But what's important there is that there was no need for an actual intermediary to exist, and I think that talks to what is going on in Africa as well. They, being underserved and underbanked, there's this absence of an intermediary there, and it's almost made like a match made in heaven between the African population and blockchain technology as a whole. And I mean, to your second point as well, there is that element of user-friendliness that's needed with the applications being developed, that interface with the technology and the asset class as well. So things like user interfaces, being able to utilize applications, localization in terms of the languages of this the various jurisdictions that the applications operate in, looking at other elements like the awareness as well. Of course, there needs to be significant awareness, so people don't understand the benefits of the digital assets that can hold for them along with the technology, but also the risks associated with them, and to fully understand that. And of course, the regulated environment as well is extremely important to make sure that those that use the technology and the asset class are covered, and I mean, they're operating a regulated environment. They've got recourse in the jurisdiction that they operate in. In addition to that, they keep, they said, malicious actors out of the industry. So I think those elements, in addition to interoperability and the network effect, is key. Of course, network effect, you want to see that mass integration amongst various other applications, whether you go to the shop, the Spaza shop, or to do micro loans, or to whatever the case may be. There needs to be significant, if call it, presence within a specific country, but also that interoperability. We're not living in a world where in Kenya, where M-Pesa is, or in China, where we've got WeChat or whatever. It is still fairly fragmented in South Africa from a fintech point of view. So I think, therefore, that is an opportunity for blockchain technology to solve that issue of interoperability as well.
Thank you so much, Wiehann. And I think also with the key thing for me is education. Is if we can actually show the benefits, show how it actually is being used already. Like you said, Spaza shops. I've been to a few townships in Cape Town where you can buy a chicken with your Bitcoin. This is happening right now. So it really is making it seem like how can a person in their everyday lives see the benefits of being part of this community and understanding the safety, and you mentioned the risk around it, how to keep yourself safe and your digital identity safe online. So I'm going to come to you now, Rikki, because I've got this order of my questions. So your question is, how does South Africa compare to other countries like the US and Asia and Europe when it comes to blockchain adoption? I know you do a lot of research in this space. So.
Good. Thanks, Melissa. So I think it is important to use the split you referred to early on of crypto versus blockchain. When it comes to blockchain, there's no doubt that we've had a lot of early adoption, not only in South Africa, but across the continent. So there are a number of regions that rank very highly by many metrics in terms of ownership, usage, and the like. On the continent, though, it appears that we gravitate towards certain types of functionality. So it's payments, it's arbitrage, it's exchange, and this is motivated often by a desire to hold some sort of store of value that isn't subject to inflation or the whims of the market. So there's a search for hard currency or some hard currency exposure. Yes, it comes with market risk because you've got crypto exposure as well, but it seems more subsistence oriented, if I may. Contrast that with what's happening in the States. I mean, there's still the biggest kind of pot of value, and that's where you see more adventurous, more kind of avant-garde DeFi types of plays. So there is a contrast between, let's say, almost a classist contrast, I would say, In South Africa, we have lots of people who are very DeFi-oriented, looking for big yields and the like. And then there's the kind of practical applications. How do you make things cheaper, easier, faster, more accessible, lower entry points? So I think it's an important distinction. That's on the crypto side. If we were to talk blockchain, if we look abroad, what's happening is we see a lot of government involvement, so the public sector, in terms of licensing, CBDCs, creating a supportive environment, trying to promulgate a regulation that supports regulated digital assets. So we talk about things like the Monetary Authority of Singapore talking about purpose-bound money. So how do you wrap money in a wrapper that gives you certainty of spend? So you've got geofencing, you might have a time horizon within which you can spend it, you might have certain applications which that money is possible for. You look at projects happening in the UK, so with Project Rosalind, where they're looking at how you might use digital payment means in the absence of internet connectivity or without electricity. So some really, really exciting technical advances that will help drive mass adoption of digital assets. I mean, and that extends to places like Switzerland, where you have the crypto valley. So you've got the government encouraging people to come and work in a specific area, giving subsidies, assuring that there's alignment between business and academia that supports the space. And think of somewhere like Dubai. Similar sorts of incentives, but also with the VARA license, I think they've done something really smart. They've attracted a lot of entities to come and set up shop there. So avoid the regulatory hurdle of operating in the US, come to the Middle East, attract more entrepreneurs and the like, and set up a base for being a world center for blockchain. I would contrast that with some of the work that's happening in the private space internationally. So you see companies wading into spaces like regulated liability networks or tokenized deposits. So these are more trusted forms of money than algorithmic stablecoins, as an example. They have implicit government guarantees in them because you've got you've got deposit insurance underpinning some of them. You've got things like tokenized securities. So you're reimagining how capital markets might work and bringing institutional users of DeFi to the fore. That lends a lot more liquidity, it lends a lot more stature to these markets than just focusing solely on a retail play. So in South Africa, we've seen some of that. We've got quite a progressive regulator. We've got an intergovernmental fintech working group in the SARB that's run several different projects. What we have not yet seen is the translation into clear, supportive regulation beyond the new licensing regime.
That's great, Rikki. And I think also having to kind of look at what the other markets are doing globally, we can potentially leapfrog some of their challenges and changes, and hopefully being able to get to our goals faster. So let's hope that's the case. Andrew, I'm going to come to you next. I saw your talk earlier where you were showing us about B2 Broker and how you guys operate. So as a trader, what are some of the challenges that you see in the markets when bringing blockchain into the financial services system? So what are the challenges that you've seen so far?
Well, thank you for the question, first of all. Maybe to begin with, I'll be more precise if I would try to elaborate, not from the trader perspective, but effectively, how do I see what is an actual solution that crypto adoption, blockchain adoption, not necessarily only in Africa, may bring to the businesses it is. So effectively, the first and the most important challenge, if we're discussing an adoption, yes, of course, when we start with institutional players, no issue about that. But as soon as we'll have a transparent legal framework, how the traditional businesses would be able to use crypto or blockchain technology in this sense, we will not be able to see any increase in penetration, the crypto into the traditional market, so to say. Crypto and the blockchain in general. So here I would like, it was a very wise decision to somehow to divide to blockchain into cryptos, but here still I would like to speak more about on the crypto aspect. From the crypto aspect and from the crypto perspective, from fintech, e-commerce, not really matters. Like anyone who may be potentially willing to adopt cryptos, they're solving multiple of challenges. First of all, the regulation. If there is a guidelines, it's way easier for them to obtain the account with the service, when we say with crypto electronic money institution licensed, rather than, for example, open a direct bank account. It significantly will reduce the cost of using the service, which is the most important benefit for the business owner. It will make an ability for the whatever. By the end of the day, it's still about the payments, right? By the end of the day, it's still about accepting money from the clients for any sort of services or usage. Utility. What needs to be more developed to a certain extent is utility. We can see a great result of Luna, if I'm not mistaken. It's very popular crypto exchange in Africa. Yes, of course, there were legal frameworks that the rest are not permitted to be in the market, for sure, but they did a great job. And they effectively, this is how we may see that crypto is there. The regulator in South Africa, they're doing multiple of programs and multiple of licensing in terms of the crypto, right? So as soon as adoption will happen, as soon as the general businesses, not only fintech, or not only the one who's related to trading or the crypto purchasing of assets, would be somehow ensured by the government that this is absolutely compliant, this is where we will see the most increase in the users who would be effectively transacting through crypto. And challenges-wise, of course, you don't necessarily, it's 24/7 operational, it's fully transparent, there is no delay in payments. If you send it, that's it. Most likely the person would receive it. It's a bit complicated to compare because effectively that's two separate words. Crypto was, of course, based on the banking infrastructure, based on the logic of the traditional finance, but it's something completely new. Majority of the time, challenges, all of the challenges that any business or any user or anyone is facing as of this moment of time, as the businesses, for example, chargeback. Let's look from the perspective of the chargebacks. With crypto, it's impossible, right? The crypto is reversible. It's great addition for the businesses, but that's not great for the clients of those businesses unless there is a transparent guidelines and regulation. So legal framework is the key in adoption, not only the blockchain, but crypto blockchain. This is where at least I can see the future in the world, not necessarily only in Africa, and especially in the emerging markets, because they are more easy to be adapted to the changing environment.
I also echo what you're saying in terms of the adoption around making it more accessible, more user-friendly, and I think just coming back to education is educating your customer. So a lot of people don't know the benefits. They don't understand why they should be, using you as a broker, or how are they going to save or, create assets, and what are their risks involved. So I think the education, but also around educating the customer is very important.
Yes, definitely. Education is the key. But even take an example like 5 years ago, how many people thought what is crypto or understood what is crypto like? I don't know, maybe way less the amount of people than now. And you can see that there is a bullish run of the Bitcoin. So more and more and more people. Well, recently there is a funny story. Even my father started to ask me like multiple of questions on how crypto operates. Tell me why I can pay this and this and that. And he's like in the middle of 60s. So you see the adoption is happening not only to the, let's say, younger generation, but for my parents, for example.
I think the kids have got us beat. I've got children and they know more than me when it comes to technology sometimes and gaming and all of this. So I think they're okay. I think it's almost the older generation that needs more education, in my opinion. So Przemysław, I hope I said that correctly. I want to come to you as well next, just with a question of how can digital currencies improve access to the financial markets for the retail investors from Africa?
Yes, thank you for this question. I think when we speak about cryptocurrencies and investing aspect, everybody thinks first about speculating, about buying different tokens, but very often we forget about the very crucial part, which also Andrew mentioned here, about payments. Like, in my opinion, the inclusion for Africa, for people from many countries in this continent, can come from payment methods. It might be right now just stable coins. Maybe in the future we'll see some stable coins backed by the governments. Let's see that. Not sure if this will happen in Africa, but definitely having stable assets which are fighting against inflation. I don't speak about South Africa, but there are many other countries on the continent where currencies are not stable, where currencies are basically taking away people's savings, where people have no access to US dollar or other stable, reputable currencies. So before blockchain, before crypto, before stable coins, people didn't have often the way to save what they already have. And that's the first very important thing. On the top of that, unhosted wallets, which are often controversial because they are not plugged to exchanges, can also help because they can also defend owners of these assets against mismanagements, especially in the phase when it's not fully regulated, and we see this mismanagements collapses. So unhosted wallets are another thing which are important aspect of it. But I think the most important is that the price. The easiness of cross-border transactions. Even with recent surge in on-chain fees, still it's so much cheaper than SWIFT. Like, it's basically, thanks to digital currencies, clients from here, investors, traders, they don't need to choose the broker in their country necessarily anymore. They can check the offer, they can now have access to global markets. And we all know that more competition brings better offer. More competition is more liquidity. More liquidity, better trading conditions again. So this is, I think, the most important aspect which enables a lot of people in this continent to access it. Because let's face it, we saw it in EU, in European Union, we saw it in USA, because these are, let's say, centralized organisms. So there we could see that there was a push to lower the barriers for traders. Let's say 10, 20 years ago, a lot of traders from Europe or USA could only dream about accessing certain stocks. You had to have a lot of capital, but the governments lowered the barriers. Here in Africa, because of the centralization, I think that digital currencies will play this role. They will allow people to lower the barriers, because you can start investing with as little as 100 USDT or 50, whereas before you needed at least $10,000 or $50,000 to cover the fees simply. So I think that has a bright future for traders and investors.
Thank you so much. Now, I love that insight. And my next question is going to come back to you, Wiehann. So I actually have to just pause and I read his bio, and I just thought, wow, can I just read this little bit? So he currently has his master's in blockchain and digital currencies, and currently a PhD candidate for blockchain and also digital assets. Plus, you've done 2 executive programs in blockchain from MIT and AI from Oxford University. I was just like, wow, our panelists are really, really awesome. So, but the question I have for you is actually coming back into talking about regulators, or the regulation in South Africa. Working for Mazars, I'm assuming that's a big part of what you guys have to be on top of. So as we're talking about the regulatory landscape in South Africa and globally, how does it impact blockchain and assets in a way of either promoting or hindering more inclusive adoption? But also kind of a 2-part question to that is, when we talk about protecting the consumer, how is the regulatory ecosystem either kind of helping that adoption of blockchain in digital assets? So go ahead.
Thanks, Melissa. You know, you're first making me blush and then asking a question. But yeah, thanks so much. So, look, I think being an auditor at heart, I've always seen the idea of regulation and why it needs to be followed and the benefit of it. Because acting as an auditor, independent auditor, you're there to look after the interest of others. And regulations should do to the same extent as well. Regulations are there to make sure that everyone is acting appropriately and also protect the consumers at the end of the day. So if we look at it on a global basis, regulations have essentially taken 3 different approaches. You've seen blanket bans being imposed by specific lawmakers, such as the likes of China, for example, that say cryptocurrencies is a no-go. Of course, that affects adoption quite significantly because of the fact that you can't transact in blockchain-based digital asset from that perspective. The next was for jurisdictions and lawmakers to actually try and regulate the industry from the get-go, as we saw with the BIT license in the state of New York. So regulations was designed before they saw how it interacted, the new applications that were being developed and those types of things. So what happened from that point of view is that a lot of virtual asset service providers didn't want to open up shop in the state of New York. So they would go to other states and they'd offer their services there or their applications there. And of course, that affected the individuals in the state of New York because they didn't have access to various platforms, applications, and those types of things. So that hinders the overall adoption as well. What South Africa and most other countries have done, they've taken the wait-and-see approach. So they wanted to see what the impact of blockchain-based digital assets will be in our economy, what will be the impact on exchange controls, what will be the impact on consumers from a payments perspective, and how will it integrate into various other sectors of various industries. And I think to that point, we've done that part at least well. So we've set out these regulations to regulate accordingly, but not necessarily to stifle innovation involved with virtual asset service providers and blockchain and its asset class as a whole. But I think if you drill into more detail than that, and you come to the realization that you can look at it from a retail perspective and from an institutional perspective. Now, regulations, in my view, will increase adoption amongst the retailers because the retailer will be more comfortable operating in a regulated environment, to transact with the asset class, to know the fact that they have recourse in their specific jurisdiction, and that regulations are set out to stop malicious actors entering the market and causing financial harm. So definitely a plus point in that side. But on the retail, on the institutional investor side, it's a bit of a different game now, because now, if you look at earlier this year, the SEC approved 11 Bitcoin spot ETFs, and of course that resulted in a massive inflow of BTC or BTC being purchased for those spot ETFs. Now, there's also created the opportunity for institutional investors to actually invest in the asset class through a regulated means as well. So, of course, that is also fantastic for adoption overall from a blockchain perspective, and it also gives the individuals and the retail customers a little bit more comfort. New innovation is created and those types of things. But now, if you look at South Africa, the JSE has been quite reluctant to actually look at anything cryptocurrency related based. So I know there were several applications by the JSE for Bitcoins or spot ETFs, and the JSE shot all of them down. I mean, from an institutional point of view, that hinders that mass adoption because of the fact that now you aren't sitting in a situation where you have a platform where institutional investors can actually get involved with the asset class. If you are sure from a store value point of view, but slowly but surely we'll see other utilization of the technology from a medium of exchange point of view as well. And I think all of this can be almost wrapped under the same package of why regulations would be good, but the right regulations would have a more significant impact on adoption.
It's such a fine line to get it right, because you don't want to hinder innovation and you don't want to hinder, like, companies developing exciting new products that can really have impactful, change for their industries. But also, someone needs to be held accountable, right? If something goes wrong, who's going to be paying that bill? So you really do need those regulators to make sure that there's that accountability aspect.
And we need to hold our regulators accountable as well, because they have a significant task ahead of them in making sure that the industry is not only regulated, but monitored appropriately as well.
And I think it's challenging as every country has their own laws, their own regulation, and it's almost wish sometimes you could just make like one global thing, but I don't think that's ever going to happen. So, Rikki, I'm back to you. Talking about how we can ensure that we consider the unbanked ecosystem. So I mentioned previously, I think you also talked about those, with spaza shops and the people kind of, maybe the unbanked, that don't have bank accounts yet. How can we ensure that blockchain creates a more inclusive ecosystem for them to be part of financial services and maybe have access to things like DeFi and those kind of products?
Sure. It's a little ironic that the banker gets asked about the unbanked, but
Sorry.
I'll try my best.
It's ironic.
So I think the question's been answered to an extent by what Przemysław and Wiehann have said. I think it's about affordability. I think it's about access, and often people have access to phones, even if they are unbanked, and not being banked doesn't equate to exclusion. especially on our continent. I think there's a lot of wallet-based, we all know that there is a lot of wallet-based commerce that happens, non-token wallets, airtime-based commerce that happens, and that can easily be extended to thinking of the provision of wallets to individuals. Ultimately, it's the access to financial services, and whether it's through DeFi, totally decentralized, or some government-endorsed offering. I think that's where there will be a lot of deliberation. So if you go to free market, does it afford the protections to the people who are participating in fully decentralized, non-regulated protocols? But I see there's probably an opportunity for the intersection of distributed finance, if you want to tone down on the decentralized side, and some responsible regulation, so that there is protection, there's access, there are all the benefits of cryptocurrencies, so the permissionless element, the decentralized element, the borderless element, the efficiencies that play into the cost of accessing a service. But I think it will take some finessing. And I think that the unbanked are probably a really good population to test a few things. So amongst them, on-chain identity and CBDCs, but a flavor of CBDCs where people do not forego control. They do not forego all of the data surrounding the activities that they undertake. So there are measures to make CBDCs a lot more like cash, particularly preserving the anonymity of transactions in that space. So your identity is a passage to gaining a wallet and to having an address to receive and to send, but not all of your transactional activity is necessarily exposed nor subject to oversight by a benevolent government, let's say, or regulator.
It's kind of the middle ground of having the middleman, but someone that's just there to lend a hand when you need them, not necessarily being in charge of every transaction. Sorry, just give me 1 second. Thank you so much for that, Rikki. We've got 2 more questions, and then we want to come to the audience for questions. So if you just hang on, maybe think of something that you want to ask at the end. My next question is back to Andrew. Andrew, as blockchain and the various applications continue to evolve, what potential risks and challenges? You get to all the challenging questions here today. Sorry about that. And how can we mitigate them while ensuring the space remains decentralized and community-driven?
Well, thank you for this question again. Again, challenges I need to cover. Well, let me try. Well, effectively, I pretty much agree with the gentleman with everything what was raised before, though the challenges of the import or enabling cryptocurrency in the economy is that there's not such thing as a challenge. First of all, it's a great opportunity for the governments. Look at what happened in Lithuania. Look what happened in Estonia. Look what happened in the countries who made an actual license. Even without the CBDC, even without talking about that, there was a huge inflow of capital. So potentially for some of the emerging markets, this is a great ability, this is a great opportunity. Don't to be exposed only, or don't discuss only with the retail or institutions, or just in a general sense. If you would like to use crypto as the actual payment, as an alternative, as anything, like to solve any challenge of any kind you may have, make a company regulated here, get a full of the access, full utility here, like banking accounts, rails, so on and so forth. And this is how you are going to bring more money into the economy. It's a win-win. Crypto is adopted, it's transparent, governments will win from it as soon as they will know how to regulate it, obviously. This is the challenging point, let's say. And coming as well back to the topic of CBDC, there is I guess maybe a year ago, maybe even this year in Nigeria, in Naira, right? We can consider that this was any kind of the huge success implementing, because maybe there was a B version 2. But CBDC as well is a tricky point to my mind. As soon as it's being controlled, will it actually be decentralized and blockchain oriented?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
We want to keep it decentralized, but then not lose all the control. Like
that's and that's the key. That's the point. Though CBDC or any kind of the protocol of that kind, of course, if it's related to the government, that's way above than USDT or USDC movements, 100%. So the information of the transaction should be and must be private. Though it should be available by a specific request. And this is how the people would be able to see that their government is doing everything correctly, And even the government will be able to see that their people is doing everything correctly, exchanging the money with each other, for example. But anyway, coming back to the topic of enabling that, again, the biggest challenge and the biggest concept and the biggest issue in a certain way, or the blocker in a certain way that we may say, pretty much for any country, crypto is not being considered as an asset, as an alternative. In some countries, yes, but there is, some shady things like if your portfolio grew, you have to pay tax, or you do not have to pay tax. That's a tricky part. So as soon as there would be any pioneer, maybe it would be coming from the US and maybe from Europe, all of the legal frameworks, guidelines, on all of the volatility aspect, on all of the stable coins, CBDC aspect, and then it would be adapted to the existing, to the certain jurisdiction, to the certain country, because the rules that are applicable in US, they cannot be applicable in Africa in the same exact format. That's a different ecosystem. That's a different everything, right? I don't know, the GDP and everything. Like people live same, but the concept of the economy is slightly different. So that is why, as soon as it will be adopted and flexibly adopted, that's the key. There would be no challenges. We just need the government to approve it. That's it.
Thank you so much. And I like your positivity to say there are challenges, but let's focus on the opportunity. So that's definitely the best positive way to look at things. My final question for today, I'm coming back to you, Przemysław, I think it is. I'm going to practice. So you came from Cyprus, all the way from Cyprus, just for this conference. So we're very honored to have you. Thank you so much. And obviously, we want to close off today by looking ahead. We want to look ahead at the future. And my question to you is, what do you think the outlook, looking at the future of blockchain, is for Africa, or even you can look globally, or Cyprus maybe? And what are the milestones that you think we'll expect to see in the next 5 years?
Well, so a lot of what was already said, so I'll just try to wrap it up because we are finishing here. I think blockchain will be with us. It has a bright future. We are just at the beginning. We still didn't use it fully. Basically, it's amazing database which allows the mix between booking transactions but also transparency. Like if you think how AI can be used to analyze it in the future versus the old closed database is not available to anyone, it has the future. You can even think of things like wherever you have limited amount of units to divide. Even I think we could see in a few years land registers being run on blockchain, which makes it much easier to exchange the plots between people with just having some infrastructure, but not necessarily each time government being involved. So if we focus on milestones, I agree with everything that was said here before. But first thing we have to solve in Africa especially, I think, is internet access. It's still around 43% versus 66% globally. So that's a challenge which can be solved either by more internet or the solutions which allow using crypto without internet on the user side, but just on the receiver side or like terminal side. Another thing is regulations, which they will help in the future. We already see the push for AML globally. We also will see probably more customer protection, but this has to come from states more than global initiative. But if we speak about this, I think the big milestone will be when we solve the problem with travel rule and what was mentioned about information. I still think that we will see the bright minds who will create a way to keep this information on the blockchain, being coded, not accessible to everyone. But I just hope we will not go the direction where additional databases have to be built just for this purpose around blockchain, because that will actually jeopardize the added value which it brings. So I think these are the things which we will see soon solving the issues. And I think with that, blockchain will be with us for a long time.
Thank you so much, and thank you to my esteemed panel of guests here today. I think you all did amazing. So I want to open up the floor for maybe 1 or 2 questions. We've only got a short bit of time. So any questions from the audience? Yes, can we have a microphone over there? And just say who your questions to.
Good afternoon, everybody. My question doesn't really refer to anybody, but rather the whole panel as a whole. And my question to you guys is, how do we as blockchain entrepreneurs actually collaborate and actually drive mass adoption? And the reason why I ask this is because I'm a business developer working for a company called Libix, and we're a fintech company that offers blockchain solutions from a B2B to a B2C scale. And what we've done is that we've created an amazing ecosystem whereby people can buy into real-life assets, tokenization, OTC, NFTs, etc., allowing people to invest into these different markets from as little as 10 Rand. But even regardless of the accessibility or the problem that we're solving, it's still difficult for people to still believe the concept of blockchain technology and the opportunities that it offers. So my question is, how do we come together to actually make it work? Thank you.
Who wants to have a go?
I can pick that one. And I would fully agree with you, Melissa, like about education. But I think people also need to work with their governments, on their governments. Because what we already see, and I've seen it in the past, even in my country of origin, Poland, like if the government is too oppressive, they will ban them using crypto. Like we have to stop with this. If somebody has crypto, there might be somehow criminal. We have to completely stop with it, and governments cannot ban people from having assets. Like in the past, we would see some oppressive governments, if you own gold, if you own foreign currencies, you must be a bad person. Like if people will work with governments, because governments can destroy it all for us. But if we push them, if we explain to them a lot of lobbying, a lot of groups, and they are also on board, and what earlier Andrew mentioned, that I think governments are too afraid of capital outflow, but they don't see the other part of this coin. They don't see that a lot of money can flow in, like the easiness of offering services online of different kind for people in Africa. This is opportunity, not only threat. And I think that if we work on this, then blockchain will be more spread, crypto will be more used, and all the other tokens. That's at least my belief.
Thank you so much. Do you want to have a go?
Yeah, so I've been to the Libix offices. So what I would say is, right now, just reach out to banks. I think anyone would entertain a conversation. I think there's also a licensing regime. Make sure you're licensed. And then put yourselves in the shoes of a large financial institution, if that's who you're looking to partner with. Do you solve a real problem for their clients and for them? And are you doing it in a unique way that they aren't doing themselves or that no one else in the market is doing? So that distinction is critical.
I would just want to add one more thing, other than education, is network. So really go to these events. Here we are, you're connecting, you're talking to people, you're reaching out, you're exchanging numbers, you're following up. There's so many blockchain communities, even in South Africa, there's so many festivals. I know there's Crypto Fest in Cape Town where we, get together. There's CVC Summit was last week, I think, or a couple of weeks ago. So there's so many communities already. Reach out, be part of those communities. And I don't know if you, if what you're looking for, if you're a developer or go into Discourse. There's a lot of DIOs, so decentralized organizations, where you can have literally real-time impact and feedback and contribute to these amazing dApps, applications that are being developed. So lots of ways of really connecting and reaching out. So that's my bit. I think we're out of time, but if you want to go.
I just wanted to add, there are two associations as well in South Africa. The Crypto Asset Association of South Africa, and I think the Fintech Association of South Africa has a subsector of crypto. To be involved with those associations also very, very important.
So find them on LinkedIn. They're always posting, they've got events, and I think that's the best way to just connect with real people, have conversations, and you never know what might come out of those. Anyone else for final words, or are we all good? Thank you so much. It's been a great honor to be joining here today. So thank you so much for your time. Enjoy the rest of the conference.